Hello, English 231 students. I'm your Professor Ann Babson. Most of the time during this very strange season, you will see me wearing a mask. I will look sort of like a space alien. I'll look like this. Um, this is a weird time to be taking this class, but I promise you I have tried to find ways to make it upbeat. Our theme for this semester is finding the funny in British literature. I chose this as a recurring theme that I teach sometimes at Southeastern when my first semester there. I had some wonderful students who worked very hard in the class, but I showed them this play called The Importance of Being Earnest, which we are going to read together. Oh my goodness. They were diligent, they did all the homework, but they didn't understand the play was hilariously funny. Like the first time I read it when I was a teenager, soda came out my nose while I was drinking and reading it. It's funny AF, and the fact that they thought because it was British and the people there are from an upper class group that it must not be funny is a misunderstanding. So it hurts my heart to think that people wouldn't understand the humor in British literature, and I do think that British literature is in its humor is telling you a lot about the culture it comes from. So don't be afraid. We're going to be reading many humorous texts. There are some texts that we're going to be reading that are not humorous at all, but we are going to be reading plenty of funny things. And in discovering how they are funny and what they are joking about, we can understand the culture better. The other thing I will tell you is that you were not just courageous, but you made a good decision to take this class. A lot of the people who want to fulfill their British Lit class, their English requirement, don't want to take British Lit because they believe that somehow that because they're Americans, and yes, they live in America and know that culture, that American literature is super easy and British literature is super hard. That's not true. We are more alien from the first literature that we're going to be reading, which comes to us from 800 AD, the beginning of English history, in fact, and the beginning of the language, which is our heritage, and the reason we would pay particular attention to the development of British literature, because whatever your ethnicity, whatever your relationship to England's colonial prospects, and allow me to say, as an Irish American, my ancestors were so not down with the British Empire, and yet we do share this common language, all of us. If you're listening to my voice and you understand these words that I am saying, you are participating in something of the legacy of British literature. We're going to talk about some of the development of English as a language, particularly at the beginning of class. And American literature usually is not more accessible necessarily than British literature. It's just a shorter period of time. And in fact, one of the things that any good American literature class is going to do is to challenge your preconceived notions about how Americans think and feel and what they choose to do. We're going to be having somewhat similar conversations here. And all literature classes, including this one, are part of the humanities. And the reason why you are able to read a text from 800 AD and get something out of it is because the human condition has not changed. Maybe your elders have not shared this with you, but I'm going to let you in on the secret right now that older people know. In all eras and all times, people have had concerns a little bit like this. They are born. They belong to a family. Maybe that family is super dysfunctional. They are perhaps jealous of other members of that family. They have to do something to promote their work life, either the traditional work of women in getting married to the baron next door who has a castle, or something more grounded in physical labor if they're the working class. Men too, even if they are born the baron, their brother was not, and their brother gets none of the land. So he's got to figure out what to do. Is he going to join the church? Is he going to join the army? What is he going to do? There are problems related to the work of one's hands and its worth is part of every generation of humankind's life. There are problems associated with love. I think you know this. Raise your hand if you have never had your heart broken and you never will. Notice my hands are folded like this because they are not shooting up. Every person has been brokenhearted in love that I know of. And that is often the subject of literature. Love is hard and complicated and sometimes quite funny. We're going to read about that. Love is ridiculous sometimes. Any time you have stopped being in love with someone and you look at that person and you say, "What was I thinking? Ew!" That's part of the humor that we're going to find in British literature. You will get older. You will have children of your own potentially, or you won't. You will begin to ask bigger questions about what it all means, the life that you're living. What does it all mean? Perhaps you don't feel you know. Perhaps you are experiencing an existential crisis. Does God exist? And if so, what does God want? Some people consider that they could never find out who God is. Other people believe firmly in a God. And some people think that there is no God. But the question of our connection to the universe, our connection to a possible creator, is a universal theme throughout the world in literature. Aging is a universal theme. People begin to get older and they realize they're not going to be on planet Earth as they currently understand themselves for that much longer. How will they be remembered? Will they be perceived as good? Will their works endure past their lifetime in some way? And then they die, either to be worm food or to meet their eternal reward or damnation, depending on what one believes within Western culture. There are some who believe in reincarnation, though within Western culture, they are rarer. In any case, all of these are problems that are associated with what it means to be a human. And there are a variety of ways to consider what it means to be human. And how people will explore that. It is possible to consider humanity in terms of economics. It is possible to consider humanity in terms of theology, in terms of philosophy, in terms of cultural anthropology, in terms of psychology. And another method that we use to know what it means to be human is to read great works of literature. This is the traditional education of leaders. Examples from great literature. I'm giving you a princely education through this class. And I promise you, you may not absolutely love every work we read. You may not love this subject more than you love life itself, but you will know that I 100% believe this is worth your time, that this is a really important pursuit. And I believe it will be enriching for you, and it will help you think critically and discerningly in new ways. That is the value of literature wherever one reads good works of literature. So I commend you in advance. I am excited for you in advance because I know this stuff is so cool. At least I think it is. You can disagree with me, of course, but you will never doubt that I think it's cool AF. And with that, I send you forth into a further exploration of the syllabus and what we're going to be doing in the class. You will let me know if you have questions. I have no doubt. I will see you in class, wearing a mask, living through this unusual and in many ways unpleasant time we're in related to COVID-19. But literature is a wonderful escape. So let's go down that rabbit hole together. I'll see you in class.